Hello and welcome to another Office Hours capsule. That's right, capsule. This is a small section of my Office Hours live stream where I kind of break off and talk a little bit for you, put it in a little video for you to watch. But I would always love you to join us live at twitch.tv/theastropub, youtube.com/theastropub live at Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You come hang out with chat here and talk about Star Citizen, Star Citizen lore, news, everything in between. It's kind of a hangout, chill, and ask questions sort of stuff. And I might get a little spicy and make a little controversial statements that get chat riled up. But and there's chat saying this isn't live because they're technically right because this is recording and it's not live now, but it's live when I'm doing this. So, anywho. Right now, we're going to be doing our Squadron 42 monthly report for the month of January. Just as a reminder, this is a full read-through. This isn't a summary. There's nothing wrong with summaries, but I feel like if you really want to get to know everything there is about the project, it's important to read through it all. As always, I would encourage you to read the full thing yourself. It is in the description. I put the link to it as well, so you can read along with me if you like. But I also know that people have lives. You have other things to do. So I do read this as kind of an audiobook form of this. I will interject every so often with context and other things that I've picked up over my years of reading these to help you understand, especially if you're new to the project, what a lot of this stuff means. But I also may not know a lot of the technical terms. So if you do, please let me know in the comments below. And then without any further ado, let's get started. AI content. Throughout January, AI content progressed with Shubin Station content for Chapter 5, with a focus on the main hangar, security, trams A and B, social hub, and main bridge. This includes working on the utility deck, bridge, and engineering crews, and security tram passengers, hub patrons, and vendors. AI content also continued to focus on improving variety of personal locations and lockers. Specifically, NPCs approaching lockers, changing out their base outfits, entering cubicles to shower, and then returning their lockers to get dressed again. So, a lot of social content. They've kind of talked about this in the Star Citizen monthly report as well, that they've been working on a lot of social content. This seems like a lot of detail for Chapter 5. And for context, chapters are kind of expand this out a little so it's easier to see. Chapters are what Star Citizen calls missions. So there are missions that happen inside chapters, and they're not necessarily like broken into missions, but each chapter is like a part of the game with missions inside of it. So this is talking about, obviously Chapter 5 is when you're in Shubin Station. So. AI features. Last month, AI features continued to polish the technology used to fire arced rocket pods. Ooh. Someone had told me about this before. This system solves equations that have multiple variables, angle of throw and speed, and range of solutions that need to be evaluated. On top of the arcing solution, collision checks must be performed, which repurposes existing technology created for grenades and other arced fire weapons. Okay, so for those of you who don't get what this means artillery. That's what this means. This means artillery. Which makes sense. I've heard rumors of artillery in Squadron 42 as part of the missions. But they were rumors, so I couldn't tell you one way or the other if they're going to be in there or not. This is confirmation they're working on artillery, which if they're working on artillery in Squadron wouldn't be too much of a concept for them to have moved this idea over to Star Citizen. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. But it's specifically for AI, so it'll be interesting if they kind of move that over to Star Citizen as well. Finer polish of behaviors and level is currently underway to ensure details of animations and systematic behaviors form a cohesive whole. Let's see. AI tech. AI tech picked up where they left off last year, cleaning up the ability for multiple NPCs to use ladders simultaneously when moving in the same direction. The transit team upgrades receives upgrades to make use transit smoother and logic smoother and more robust when handling fails, retries, and fallbacks. For NPCs using elevators, the flow was improved to create more efficient sequence. For example, characters won't go back and forward anymore and will instead board the elevator directly, eliminating unnecessary waiting or interim positions. AI tech are currently refining the new loading procedure for subsumption data. This will allow stricter requirements on the data so they can immediately identify issues. This functionality will be enabled as an additional step when submitting for validation. For spaceships, the team focused on numerous bug fixes and improvements specifically for combat scenarios and AI traits, the latter of which helps influence AI logic. For example, by allowing NPCs to prefer certain behaviors over others. This allows for the designers to balance gameplay based on the enemy faction players are fighting. Existing traits include Strafer Override, which forces the pilot to always choose the Strafer tactic, and Speed Freak, which always chooses the boost and has slightly higher speeds. Okay, so this is interesting. A lot of this seems to be focusing on uniquely making each faction fight differently in the game, so you feel like who you're fighting based off how they're working. So, yeah, works. Animation. Oh, and for those of you who don't know, a lot of what they did with AI tech, what they're talking about mostly here when they're talking about AI traits for ships, what they're talking about is the system that currently is attached to FPS in the universe. For FPS at like in Star Citizen right currently, that system they developed for Squadron, they've attached that to ships and are now improving upon that system, which will then eventually be imported in Star Citizen itself. So, if this music is a little loud, I will turn it down. Yep, should be fine. Oh, it's because my mic is a little bit low. There we go. That's why. That should help. Let's see. Animation. Last month, the animation team further refined the feel of the AI in a number of chapters to better tell the story. They also worked on malfunctions, prone EVA, and several boss fights, and further refined combat animations for different enemy types. They're currently implementing new story beats to better align how levels feel. This is supported by the mocap team via focused shoots that quickly add improvements to the game. On the facial front, the team is hard at work implementing additional lines for Old Man to add more value to the player's relationship with him. It looks like a lot of this is focusing on storytelling beats in Squadron 42 itself. So, of course, boss fights. Every time I mention boss fights in Star Citizen, people get mad. I don't want boss fights in Star Citizen. It's like, why not? It's always a confusing thing, but, you know. Art environment. January saw environment arts strike teams progress with chapters 1, 4, and 5. We've pushed a lot of the core development teams into delivering these chapters alongside the design teams. It's been rewarding to see the progress we've been making together in these locations, environment art team. Locations-wise, passes were made on interior, hangar, security, social, and bridge sections of Archon Station, while the white box metric art for store interiors was converted to final. So, for those of you who don't know, strike teams have been the thing that they formed since a lot of the teams that were ported from Star Citizen to Squadron to develop things like the new Mobiglass, the star map, the FPS behaviors, all of that stuff. A lot of those teams have moved on to back to Star Citizen. So the Squadron team has reorganized into smaller strike teams, which is what they do with some, like when they're trying to like really refine one thing to get it done. So there are strike teams that work on several different chapters at once. I believe there's one that's working like 1 through 5 and then through 10 or something like that. So these are groups of people from all different disciplines who've come together to work on that level, to kind of like look at it as a whole and see if this chapter 1 makes sense in terms of its narrative, in terms of its layout, in terms of its gunplay, in terms of the enemy varieties. It kind of looks at a holistic approach to the missions rather than, or to the chapters, rather than just like individual disciplines. So that's what a strike team is. It's like a smaller group of people from across different disciplines to look at the game. Aha! This is the big one. Probably the reason why you clicked on this, because I skimmed through this and was like, this is what I'm going to use. The Javelin received a complete pass this month, including intact and damaged interiors, a full lighting pass, and a dynamic dressing that reacts to the damaged version of the ship. Environment art also continued to update the Javelin's exterior to a new, higher standard for capital ship exteriors. Once completed, they'll move on to the damaged version. Locations in Chapter 4 were also worked up to a high standard, including the interior of some asteroid truck stops and an abandoned ship. Finally, for the environment art, the Odin system was updated with a new sun nebula that can be seen during downtime. That's big. So they're basically reworking the Javelin to have it full lighting pass, dynamic dressing to damaged versions of the ship, updated the Javelin's exterior to a new, higher standard for capital ship exteriors. So it'll be interesting to see how long that takes. So, core gameplay. Polish on the star map's features continued in January, including new box outs to give information about the selected location and what service it provides. It also gives the option to set quantum routing, drawing the route between current location and destination, similar to star map. Okay. Similar to the current star map. Okay. So they're kind of polishing up the star map's features for Squadron. The character customizer gained further improvements, allowing for player to save and load their characters, which also enables the backing up and sharing of customized character appearances. A randomization function was also worked on to give aesthetically pleasing results. Core gameplay worked alongside the back-end team to help with data serialization and compress the data as much as possible to make sending character data to other clients as efficient as possible. That's interesting. I'm wondering if some of this stuff is going to be ending up in Star Citizen as well. This is core gameplay for Squadron, but a lot of this stuff feels like Star Citizen content, like, box out information for selected locations and the saving and exporting the character for other people to pick up and use if they need to. So, interesting. Gameplay story. The gameplay story team begins the year improving scenes across different chapters. For example, several scenes were updated with the new mocap at the start or end, or both, to pose match to systemic animations. This ensures that they dovetail well into the rest of the game and make them more robust. One tricky scene in Chapter 14 was completely overhauled with new mocap and is now considered by design to be bulletproof. Gameplay Storm Team. Gameplay Storm Team? What? Gameplay Storm Team? Xylo, what does that mean? Tell me, Xylo, what does it mean? Alongside this, the team communicated with the stakeholders to establish a proper standard for grip setup for helmets. They're currently batch updating helmet animations to use the new setup, which will unblock a lot of long-standing issues. Level design. Social narrative started the year where they left off, striving to close out Archon's social area. This walk and talk section presents particular challenges, including the potential for players to leave their guide and explore the station. Devs also closed out outstanding issues on the social section of Chapter 1 and continued to focus on the interstitials and a key scene in Chapter 8. Work was also done on conversations between the Aegis crew, who reference the player and current in-game situation. So, for those of you who don't know, a lot of what Star Citizen, or a lot of what Squadron 42 has, is driven by the player's decisions. So, if players choose to not watch a cutscene, they can click a button and then walk down to where the cutscene is happening, and it's happening in front of them in real time. They said that, like, for instance, if you looked at the vertical slice of when the MPUV was landing, and then they were kind of removing the prisoners from the MPUV, they said that you'd be able to skip that cutscene and actually walk down to the flight deck and watch it happen in front of you if you wanted to. So you have that cinematic experience with Squadron, if you like a classic Chris Roberts game, or you could walk down and watch it happening in front of you because it's all done in engine, in game. So it has its own unique animations and everything, but it's all used the same kind of. And so that's what it sounds like what they're doing here. It's like you can leave, you can kind of more exploratory, and then of course interacting with, like, there are sections of Squadron 42 that are just social. You walk around your ship talking with people and going from place to place. So there might be some sections where you don't have any combat at all. It's just talking with people on the ship and, you know, moving on from there if you need to. All right. Narrative. The narrative team begin the new year further refining the narrative elements of Squadron 42. For example, the team identified a few key moments where additional loudspeaker announcements would help drive the sense of urgency. First, they added a placeholder recordings, and once the team is satisfied with how the movements, how the moments feel in game, they record with professional voice actors. The team also made passes on various UI elements, providing new text as needed alongside revisiting text to provide further clarity or impact. Work also continued on the game's collectibles. The teams continued to coordinate with the artists to create memorable, eye-catching things to discover. Additionally, the team spent time diving deeper into how players will learn information on the game's lore through Galactopedia entries as they naturally progress through the story. More Galactopedia stuff, collectibles, and kind of really dialing in that experience, which is hopefully what they're really focusing on now that they've gone beyond feature complete status. So, UI. In January, the UI team continued to polish the vehicle UI, including getting some of the holographic elements to appear on physical screens for the lower tech ships. They also improved the display of quantum travel information and polished elements of the turret UI. They also added various animated screens to make screens in-game more interesting, including enemy tech, screens for civilian areas, and help to show the story help show the story in a key section near the start of the game. Regarding FPS UI, a pass was started to bring the lens up to standard now that the visor is in a good state. We've been working on some updated concepts to give it a fresher look, whilst also including some of the improvements we created for the visor. UI team. And lastly, VFX. Last month, the VFX team continued to support art, design, and cinematics team with their VFX requirements. This included updating dynamic fire effects to work on additional locations to accommodate new graphic scenarios. They also created a new ROTUS system to make sure that the number of VFX-related data errors was reduced to 0. Each week, an artist is picked to work directly with the embedded VFX QA team member to ensure the existing bug list is kept at 0 week to week. Right. So, it's a pretty small one. It's January. January is usually the kind of lighter elements of things, and a lot of what CIG has been doing over the last couple of months has been focusing on strike teams and improving very specific elements of the game. Though we can pull some of the ideas out. They're definitely reworking some of the UI, kind of bringing that up to the new standards, which is very typical in these sorts of situations. Getting a basic working UI it makes sense, and then refining it to make sure it looks good and feels good, and fits in narratively makes sense. The narrative team is really focusing on key elements. Level design is working on Archon Station, which is the station, I believe, that Shubin Station is. The Shubin Station called Archon Station. So, new scenes, core gameplay, bring up things like star map and character customizer. The Javelin getting a complete overhaul for it. New mentions of social interactions with AI, ways of wandering away from the AI, and somehow we're getting artillery. All awesome ideas. So short, hopefully sweet. But as always, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And I do want to thank Factor for sponsoring the stream. Factor is a fantastic service. I've used it in the past. If you find yourself often being too tired to make your own dinners, or forgetting to pack a lunch, but you don't want to go out to get food or order food, Factor is a fantastic service to give you good, healthy, unique foods, which you get weekly from them. They come in boxes, refrigerator boxes. You pull them out, you put them in your fridge, and they're good for 7 days. And all you got to do to heat one up and eat it is stick it in a microwave for 2 to 3 minutes, pull it out, and it's good to go. Nice variety of foods, good, and things like vegetarian, vegan, keto. They've got a lot of different options for there as well. I've used them in the past. And if you use my code, which I'll have in the top comment and top pinned comment and in the comments below, or in the description below, you can get 50% off your first box with me. That's in some cases $60+ depending on which kind of boxes you get, which is a great deal if you get it. And again, thank you for Factor for sponsoring the stream. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.